Hello, everyone. This is Ben Dunn, founder of Antarctic Press, a comic book publishing company established in 1985. Creator of such comics as Ninja High School, Warrior Nun, Marvel Mangaverse, and a host of many others. So today I wanted to discuss why publishers, comic book publishers, tend to go out of business, quite frequently. Now, what do I mean by going out of business? Well, ceasing publication, of course. Now, you can keep a comic book publishing company alive for many, 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 many years as long as the owner or proprietor of the publishing company decides to keep it so. Now, what is the one of the main reasons that a lot of comic book publishers go out of business? Well, is it lack of capital? Well, a lot of them starts off with a lot of working capital. Some of them see a lot of success in their initial offerings. People are excited about a new company, their offerings, and they usually buy quite a substantial amount of books, from that company in order to try out their new offerings. Now, the main reason there's a lot of reasons, but one of the main reasons is that a lot of them simply don't own their own IPs. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, IPs means intellectual property. The thing, the product that publishing company offers that will hopefully sell in sufficient numbers to keep that publishing venture going for quite some time. The problem is that a lot of them don't own the IPs that they publish. And this lack of owning your own IPs can be very detrimental to the well-being of a comic book publisher. Why do you think Marvel and DC have lasted so long? Because they own the IPs they publish. They own Batman, they own Spider-Man, they own Superman. They own all those characters that generate millions of dollars in revenue for them. And that is why they're still publishing. You think for one moment, just one moment, if they did not own any of those IPs, that they would still be in business? Highly unlikely. Even Charlton Comics, own their own IPs. That's the thing that keeps publishing companies alive. You have to own a product that people will buy. That is the main key thing. Now, if you are reliant on one character or one IP, you better hope that IP remains popular for many, many, many decades. Because that's the only way that a publishing company, can stay afloat, is they create an IP that will sustain them to keep them in business. And that is the reason why a lot of these, especially Marvel and DC, hold on to their IPs with an iron fist, because they know without them, they would be nothing. Now, that's why they always create new characters. That's why they always create new IPs, because they want the next big thing to come along so they can keep exploiting that IP for decades to come. And that is the reason why many publishers who don't own their own IPs fail. You can, do well with licensed product, but again, you don't own it. You're licensing it from somebody else who does own the IP, and they can take it to anywhere they want once their contract is expired or they're dissatisfied with the output that the publisher is currently putting out. Now, so if you are a comic book would-be publisher, it's very important that you consider the IPs that you're going to rely on to keep your venture going. The key factor is that you have to look at what you're doing so that, if you are planning a long-term venture, say, you want to stay in publication for 5, 10, 15 years down the line, does the IP you currently have the stamina to keep going for that long? The thing about a lot of these IPs that I've been noticing is that they seem more like pitches for TV series and movies, and sometimes they get optioned right off the gate with no history, no background, no idea whether this idea has legs. What I mean by legs is that it has longevity. Whether this story idea can sustain itself for 1, 2, 5, 10 years down the line. That's why a lot of IPs are character-based rather than story-based. Many of these options that are being made are story-based. They have the idea, they say, what if this, that, such and such, what if I mishmash with this, what if I took two separate IPs, smashed them together to create a new one. This is the modus operandi of a publisher who's just throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks, and hopefully get that sweet, sweet option money from some, Hollywood production company, and see their creation made into a movie or TV series. Well, I will tell you that is a fool's errand. If you're going to rely on getting option money, then you are fooling yourself. Now, I'm not saying that can't be done. And, the thing about it is that in order for a lot of these companies, you may not know this, a lot of these companies, in order to get their IPs in front of agents, is that they have to hire people to shop it around. You have to get people to convince other people who have the money or who have the power in these production companies to look at your IP and say, oh yeah, this has potential, let's spend some money on it. Now, like I said before in previous videos, options really don't mean anything. All an option is that a production company wants to hold on to the rights of a particular idea so that nobody else can get it and snatch it from under them. They soon realize that there's no demand for this, or there's nobody who's interested in producing it and taking it to the next level, and then they find out that the option is meaningless. You got some money, maybe a few dollars, maybe a few $100, maybe a few $1,000, depending on the level of professional or the level of awareness this IP particular has. I could buy an option right now from any number of creators, for a couple of $100, and say I'm a production company, and it would be very easy for me to obtain literally dozens of IPs, because so many people want to see their IPs made into something beyond simply comics. I could start a production company and say, oh yeah, I have connections in Hollywood and I want to option your IP so that I can shop it around and nobody else can, and see if I can get some nibbles or bites from other bigger production companies who have the money and is willing to spend it to develop this particular IP. Now, the problem is that a lot of these IPs that people have, the creators feel like their IP is the best IP in the world and is deserving of being made into a movie or TV series. Now, I will tell you that is a illusion. Chances are 99.9% of the IPs out there currently in comics will never be made into movies, never be made into TV shows, never be made into anything other than just being a comic book, which is fine. Okay, I'm not disparaging that at all. In fact, I encourage more people to create comic books because, I never said it wouldn't be a 0% chance. There's always that, small, minuscule percentage that your creation will be taken notice of and will go beyond simply being a comic book. But it all depends on how willing the work you're putting into it, the ideas that can come out from it, and whether or not it's a unique enough ideas that people pay attention to it, or you have sales levels that people pay attention to, or an awareness level. See, that's really the key factors, is awareness. You can sell a lot of copies. You can sell $1, $2, $3 million worth of comics, but of only a couple of thousand people are aware of the brand or the idea. That's nothing, in comparison to whether or not you can get something made into something beyond simply a comic book. It just does not translate automatically into something that goes beyond just simply being a comic book. Now, it does help that if your IP has longevity, if you've done, 10, 15, 20, 30 copies of a comic book, that shows that there's potential in the storyline that some producers may look like and says, oh, that's got some long history going on there that we can definitely take advantage of. The thing about Marvel and DC, they got 80 years of the material that they can rely on. They can pull any number of stories out of their butts, and translate that. And chances are, most people have never heard the storyline, and it would be something new and unique for them. For comic fans, we probably know all about it, but for the vast majority of the normies out there, they have no idea. This is all new to them. Before Deadpool came along, nobody ever heard of Deadpool. Even characters like the X-Men and Wolverine, nobody cared or knew about them until movies came out about them. People have heard Superman. Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman are probably the three most well-known superhero IPs in the existence of the world. And the reason because the idea that they represent really resonated with people to the point where even in its infancy, Superman became a huge hit, and the same with Batman. Now, Batman took a little while longer to finally get into the zeitgeist. Oh yeah, Batman was never that great a seller, to be honest. The thing is, Batman just barely held on, and in several instances in his life, they were almost at the verge of cancellation. It wasn't until the Adam West 1966 TV series that Batman suddenly became in prominence again. A lot of people say that it was deliberately made campy. No, it actually was taking the Batman from the 1950s and early 60s and following up with those stories, because those stories were camp. They were silly. They were meant for kids, and of course the producers, though, they didn't have the Dark Knight to work off of. They didn't have, the Denny O'Neil and the new dark version of Batman, and the Golden Age version was so far behind them that, and it wasn't very kid friendly, that they went with the version that they ultimately ended up with. But not to get off track here, if you are a would-be publisher of comic books, it's very important that before you start publishing it, you look at your IP and you see it seriously, and think about what it is that you're trying to accomplish. If you're just trying to tell a story, that's fine. Nobody's going to hold that against you. If it's the story you want to tell, then that's fine. However, you will find that unless that story idea can sustain longevity, then that's all it is a one and done. You're not going to have what is equivalent to a publishing company, and you can continue to do this, but that's the thing, is that'll just be you as a creator creating comics, nothing more, nothing less. If you want to get some legitimacy, and I'm using that word loosely, by the way, and among producers, you have to represent a company of some sort. No one wants to really deal with an individual creator. They like to deal with companies because companies like to deal with other companies. Companies, corporations, they have no idea how to deal with a single individual, because single individuals are difficult to work with. And they know this, because a lot of creators are very, very, very protective of their IPs, or they can be. Now, there are some creators, I don't know what kind of creator you are, but some creators don't care. The first offer they get down the pike, the first legitimate, offer to get down with the fight for some production company, they're there. They're willing to make changes. They're willing to compromise just to get things moving along as far as seeing their idea come to life in some other media. Now, the thing about it is that sometimes that can be careful what you wish for, because oftentimes what ends up happening is that your IP no longer belongs to you. Once Hollywood gets their hooks into an IP, then you can pretty much say goodbye to any control over your particular IP. I don't care how powerful you are. Okay, there's always somebody more powerful, in the upper echelon that will supersede you or try to override you, in some fashion. So, be prepared to see your IP totally changed and manipulated into something different than you are going to be used to. So as long as you don't mind that, then that's fine, But I just want to forewarn you that that's usually what happens. It's very rare that an adaptation of a comic book is almost true to its source material. Even Watchmen, as true to source material as it changed the ending of the comic book. And then and even though it made very minuscule and minute changes to the overall adaptation, it also proved to be a box office failure, because the true adaptation of some things just doesn't translate well to other media. Sometimes that's why it's called an adaptation, because the people who know how to make movies, know how to make TV shows, they know how to tell a story, or they should be able to tell a story. So, anyway, I just wanted to say that if you are a would-be publisher of comics, please look at your IP carefully and decide that it is something that you want to do and that has longevity, and that you are wanting to go beyond just simply putting out a comic just for your own edification, just for your own pleasure, and just because if you really want to see things grow and to expand beyond simply the one comic book that you have going, you have to create new IPs for your company. My deal with Antarctic Press is that every IP I create belongs to Antarctic Press. I willingly give it up to them because I also am part owner of the publishing company. So it behooves me to create as many new things as I possibly can to see what will stick, what will sell, and what will keep the company alive. And that is what is the most important thing. The main purpose of a company is to keep itself alive in any way it can. So just some little advice for you would-be publishers out there about how to survive, in the long term, as far as being a comic book publisher. Now, I'm not saying that this is the ultimate advice that you should take, but this has worked for us in the last nearly 40 years that we've been in business. We can always rely on our IP to take us out of a particular downturn in sales. We can always put out a Ninja High School thing. We can always do a Ninja High School spin-off. We create new characters. Hopefully that'll sell based on trends, based on ideas that are currently popular. And that's the beauty of comics, is that you can turn on a dime as far as comics are concerned. If something is popular, you can do a comic book in 20 days. If something is waning in popularity, then you can just pivot to something else that is gaining popularity. So, that's the thing about comics that I love, is that you're able to adapt very quickly to changing environments. Unlike movies and TV shows, we are very slow to adapt. Comics are a different kettle of fish. Now, things have changed with social media and things like that, but still, the problem with that is how do you monetize it? That's the big question. It takes a lot of work and dedication to monetize anything on social media, and it takes just as much work, if not more so, to then comic books. At least with comic books, you have something that you can hold and look at and physically enjoy. But that's a little bit of advice from someone who's been around the block a few times. Take it from this old boomer that some things that are old fashioned still work, and that the idea of owning your own IP, is probably the most fundamental as far as business is concerned, comic book business is concerned. So until next time, if you like what you have, please like and subscribe below, make a comment, and until next time, this has been Ben Dunn signing off.